Okay, I got some concept art in. Can't wait to open this. We're going to look at some other Garbage Pail Kids art if you have a moment. I know it's a weird time. This is just the time I have to do this kind of stuff. So stick around or just watch it after work. So Garbage Pail Kids, there's a ton of art involved. You know, before they get to a card, it goes through all sorts of processes from a concept art to line art to, coloring, getting the colors right, and then the actual painting. And that's all before they print it, right? So anyway, I got a piece in right here. We're going to open this now. And I want to talk about it a little bit and why this piece in particular was not chosen for the set that it was intended for. Okay. All right. This is from an artist that I absolutely love. And he was prominent during the All New series. Another thing that I absolutely love, the All New series. Anyway, here it is. Yeah, a very small piece here. This is by Luis Diaz. We know that because it has Luis Diaz's little monogram here, and it has a 5. If there's a number inside the D, that's the number or the year that it was made. So I can tell immediately without a date. Well, there is a date. There's a D with a 5. That is 2005. Anyway, this is a piece that was intended, I reckon, for All New Series 4, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it's a little girl who's caroling. But as you can see in the concept, now this was not chosen for this set. Gotta stick around. We're going to be looking at some art today. Yay! This is production art, okay? I'll get back to that. Okay, but anyway, this was not chosen for the set. So before they could even... Oh, it has this. Before they could even go through and paint it, they had to run this by the art director. So the art director at this time was Jeff Zapata, and he did not approve this because it's not Garbage Pail Kids. So this is a little bit off topic, but I do want to point something out about this piece and just a problem overall with Garbage Pail Kids. Now, the reason this was not chosen, I'll just tell you, is it's not Garbage Pail Kids at all. Here we see a Cabbage Patch girl in a Santa costume, which is also not Garbage Pail Kids like. Of course, there's Chris Mess and stuff like that. But anyway, there's a hand holding out a calendar that says July. So that was the gag. So I'm not trying to talk bad about Luis Diaz. Let's not, because he has so many classics. But in this piece, it comes a little short. So thank God he sent it in before he painted it, because that would have taken, just a big waste of time for everyone. The thing is, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you ever watch the Cabbage Patch cartoon, Russ, are you watching the Cabbage Patch cartoon? No, but I have reviewed some of them. Things like this happen in the Cabbage Patch show. They do little quirky things. They make mistakes. Cabbage Patch dolls in the Cabbage Patch media do little silly things too. So there's nothing Garbage Pail Kids about a little girl in a Santa costume, which is very mainstream, by the way, singing in July. In fact, that's a little cute. There's nothing edgy about it, right? So anyway, today there's actually going to be 2 little topics. One is, what is the process for making a Garbage Pail Kid? I'm going to show you a bunch of them. I think I will. We'll just see how it goes. So this would be the first stage. It's one of the artists who, are sitting in their studio and they're just playing with ideas. So I guess he had the idea of a little girl mistakenly singing carols to someone at their doorstep in July. Okay. Now, Luis Diaz goes much, much darker than that. We know this. By the way, I got to mention this before I go any further. Back in the early 2010s, if you would go to conventions, nowadays they have the Gross Con, and they have the Philly show. That's been around forever. But if you would go to those back about 15 years ago, Luis Diaz was going to a lot of those. These were selling for $10 back then. Thankfully, I purchased some back in the day. I did sell them, though, in the past 15 years. I wish I hadn't. But these were just, $10. And he had just whole bins of them. And another reason I'm telling you this is a lot of these artists, they have so many ideas that just never made it very far in the process. Either their ideas were too dark, too disgusting, whatever it is, or not even Garbage Pail. This is not Garbage Pail Kids. This is Cabbage Patch Kids. You guys do know that, right? Yeah, this is a little off topic, but it does irk me when I see some of these sketch card artists actually drawing Cabbage Patch Kids and selling them as Garbage Pail Kids. There's nothing Garbage Pail Kids about this. It's not a Garbage Pail Kid. Okay, so yeah, we're going to look at some of the process, okay? So when you're out there in the collecting market, all it is eBay and Facebook or maybe a heritage auction or something. It's a very small little bubble we exist in. You're going to see a bunch of art, okay? What's what? Why does this look scratchy and rough? And why does this look so perfect? Is this even real? This could be a print. Let's just talk about that. That'll be today. So this thing that we just looked at, this is called a concept sketch, okay? Some people will go and call this art. Don't be confused. This is not really art. This is a sketch, okay? So it's just a drawing, you know what I'm saying? It's not really colored in. Do you guys see any shading? No, there's no shading, okay? He hasn't got that far. It's just a sketch, okay? So when you're out there looking for this stuff, you're going to hear a lot of this language. Some of it's not correct, okay? So let's do this as well. As we look through, I'm going to take you through. God, I do not want to look at all this art, but we'll look at some of it, okay? So just the stuff I have out here. So this is a painting by Luis Diaz, the same person. Remember what I taught you today. When you look down here, so what year was this made? Based on what I taught you here. It's made in 2006. Okay. If this had a 1 and a 6, that's 2016. All right. Anyway, so this is a final painting. This is where Jeff Sabata, the art director in 2006 said, okay, Luis Diaz, we're going to go for it. And so for Luis Diaz in particular, he would do some more sketches in here. I don't have them. But he would do some sketches here, and then he would get to the final. Some artists, as you'll see, do a color rough, they're called. And not all of them do. There's no rules to it, okay? It's just whatever the artist feels comfortable with. So in this case, Luis Diaz took it here. Now, one thing, this is Sam Castle, if you didn't know. Lovely, lovely piece, lovely character. There is a particular thing that happened with Sam Castle that a lot of us back, if you were around in 2006, most of you weren't, but we were really mad about, is because Luis Diaz showed us a pencil of this. He showed us one of these. Actually, I think it was the second, his next drawing. And Sam, this is Sam. Sam looked like a human. He didn't look like a castle per se. He was made of sand though. It was so much better. And what happened was, not trying to talk about Zeph Zapata at all. He's an awesome guy. He's a friend of mine. Is they thought it was too violent. They thought it was too violent for a kid who was helplessly trapped in the sand getting kicked by what looked like a man's foot. But anyway, I thought it still turned out good, even though it just took a little bit of the edge off. Anyway, so yeah, and we call those finals. Here, might as well talk about this. This is Fake Jake to OS 14. This is a John Pound piece. one of the original series. I do not have a pound color rough. I just don't collect those much. But I do have a pencil here. This is Potty Scotty, obviously. So Pound, his process, guys, there's not many of these artists. So this conversation isn't that long anyway. There hasn't been that many final artists, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of artists, but not the actual people that actually carry these ideas to actually printed cards. So, but anyway, with Pound, he would do what's called a pencil rough. We call them pencil rough. Right here it says art. That's a little annoying. But anyway, so what's missing with this is pencil, rough, his color rough, and then his final art that I don't own. This is a great example. This is by George Evans. Evans never got the opportunity to do a final. He never got the opportunity to make his own kid. We call them kids and Garbage Pail Kids. Like that. This is Fake Jake Kid. That's the Toilet Kid, the first Toilet Kid. But anyway, he did get to work on all the little merchy things like things like this. So what you get to see here is his process. Well, this was his job though. What they needed him to do with, this is, Junkie Jeff, that's what I call him, Stinky Stan, is to take this kid and they needed just some simple line art. So we call this line art. Line art does not show up much on the market. There's not much line art to buy. A lot of these guys like Pound, they were not in charge of line art. Okay, now Tom Bunk did some line art, but anyway, so George Evans, that was mainly his little contribution. He would do line art. Basically, it's like a tracing. It's not a tracing, but it's basically just contour line. And then here, this is a Xerox. So this was printed in a fucking machine. And then he came in here with color pencils. You can tell, obviously, it's color pencils. His job here was to break, this might have, if you were to count every shade of color, there could be 400 colors right here, you know what I'm saying? But they needed this simplified. So George Evans' process was to do the line art. That was the main thing they needed, just do the line art. And then they needed him to simplify 400 colors into just like under 10. Because when they ran this through their machines or however it worked, they couldn't do all the different nuance of colors. They needed it simplified. Here's a great example. So when you're out on the market, I'm just showing you some things. Also, I'm just trying to teach you some of the language because it can be very, very confusing. Here's another one. It's just so nice to see, isn't it? Just to see, okay, he has Bridget, Harry Carey, line art. And you get to see his calculations for the printer. Here he really broke that down. So this piece might have, could sit there all night, smoke some weed or whatever you do, count out about 70 different shades. Well, he broke it down into 4 or whatever it is. So they needed him to do that. Okay. Okay, so these are called, well, I don't know why I'm turning it. These are called concept art. Okay. This is by Art Spiegelman. So Art Spiegelman is the creator, co-creator, I guess, of Garbage Pail Kids. And so back in the day when all this chaos started, 1985, what they were doing, they were just putting ideas down. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Let's see who this is. Oh, this is the Suitcase Kid. I forget her name. I do believe it's a girl, though. I forget the series. So basically, Art Spiegelman took a sheet of copier paper because it did not matter what it was drawn on. Sometimes they were napkins. Sometimes you'll see some other different forms. And he was just trying to get this idea down. Maybe he was walking down the street in Brooklyn and thought of this, he probably saw a businessman holding a little purse and some shit was sticking out. He's like, oh, that could be a little kid, a little garbage ball kid, right? Here it says carpet bag. That is so valuable to us hobby historians. I have never seen a reference to that. In fact, I forgot that was even there. So it's a carpet bag, kid. Isn't that cool? You would never know that unless someone found this shit. This is obviously Vampire. And so this was done by Spiegelman too. Look how rough this was. It did not have to be a work of art. He was just trying to get this idea out of his head, right? Now, luckily, a lot of these were saved. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Most of them were not saved. So what I want to say is, luckily, some of them got saved, right? But this was sent to one of these guys. Okay, so back in the day, in the OS, we had, who was it? We had John Pound, Bunk, Warhola. There was a few more that would pop in here and there, but not many. It's mainly those three. So this was sent in, class, who did Vampire? James Warhola did it. Anyway, so the concept here was a little kid, a little vampire kid in a hospital sucking blood from his blood transfusion. So the blood was supposed to be transferred into him to save his life, but he skipped all that when no one was around and sucked it out with a straw. That was the gag. That's another language thing that you see with Garbage Pail Kids thrown around is the gag. So Garbage Pail Kids, there should be a gag. So if you look back at this one, it has a gag. She's singing on July and it's pissing these people off during the summer that she's dressed up like this and singing at their doorstep. But that gag carries almost no interest. You know what I'm saying? Like what's cool about that? Almost nothing. Like actually nothing. Nothing's cool about that. This is way more cool. And I actually have the pencil for this. What a good, yeah, that's, well, let me bookmark it or whatever, at least figure where it's at. 1 second, guys. Because I can show you where this was taken. Anyway, I don't see it. Okay, this was by Art Spiegelman. That's another thing people don't realize is how dark Garbage Pail Kids were and should be. That's why we love them. So in this piece, there is a child strapped to a chair, high chair. There you go, high chair. It's a little toddler. And there's a parent, we're going to see it later, that's well drawn. And anyway, he's being force-fed the food. And if he doesn't eat it, he gets electrocuted. So there's wires. We'll see it in a minute, I promise. I got to find it, though. We'll get to it. So anyway, he gets electrocuted if he doesn't eat. This piece is a great example of something that was too dark. This piece was never used for Garbage Pail Kids. So Garbage Pail Kids does have a limit. So the problem with all this is these were, eventually they were printed and passed out to the masses. And you wanted to push the envelope, right? Or they wanted to, make these funny, but there is a line that some of them crossed. Okay, here's some more examples of concept sketches. These were never meant to be seen. They were only meant to be passed off to the professional painters. These are some pretty beloved characters, by the way. But they're so crazily drawn that they might be hard to figure out. This is Charlie Horse. OS 7. I'll never forget the day I pulled Charlie Horse. I was driving in the car. I was a passenger. My mom was driving. And we just found those fucking purple packs. Remember that? Remember seeing the purple pack? No one talks about this. How amazing those purple packs look. Of course, we went from yellow packs, black packs, back to red, which was so disappointing. I remember as a kid, like, why'd they do red again? And then those fucking purple was amazing to see. I'm kind of a color person, so I'm always like obsessed with color. This is such an amazing piece. In particular, this is on Topps letterhead. Here we see Brooklyn, New York. You can go ahead and dox them and look that up on Google Earth and see where the old factory was. But yeah, and that's Wanda, whatever the fuck her name is. This is a piece. I can't remember if they made the ice skating kid. I think they did though. So it's just a little look into this world. We're going to look at some finished pieces if you have a sec. Oh, I've got to point out another thing that was so cool is, so this is by Spiegelman, right? Look what he called, was it Noah Head? I forget his name. He's the crippled head kid. This is Coiled by Python Kid. These numbers have nothing to do with the card numbers. They didn't know what card number it was going to be. This is way fucking before the card number. Are you guys figuring out the process here? These are people in Brooklyn thinking this shit up, taking any little piece of trash paper. Some of them are wrinkled and shit, sketching them out real quick and just trying to get it down, putting some notes around it, and then passing them off to Pound, Bunk, and Warhola mainly. This is such an endearing piece. I always love Milky Wayne. I just love this character. But look what Art Spiegelman called it. Cow and Udder Kid. Ain't that great? This one's dark. This one's by Mark Newgarden. Check it. And he puts Chas Adams gag. So a lot of this stuff is also coming. They're inspired by other illustrators like Chas Adams. He's the maker of the Addams Family. So when you see this kid, what's his fucking name? 12 O'Clock High or something. Midnight Kid. They call it a Midnight Kid. Isn't that cool? No one knows it because you'd have to have this to know it. Midnight Kid. Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway, so this was not even Mark Newgarden's idea. This was Chas Adams' gag. So he's showing reference to that. Isn't that just amazing? This has some noise behind it on some other paper that's just thrown in there. Let's get that out. Actually, now I think about it, there's a really good piece behind it. Yeah, I always love that character, that Jack-in-the-Box kid. Here's a New Garden. Now, I can show you this one. Let's put this to the side. We'll come back to that. Okay, so when you're out there, you're probably not going to find a ton of concept sketches. I did find this piece last week. They're pretty rare to find. There's not much value to them, though, because, I mean, look at them. They're never going to hold a ton of value. They just have what I guess I would just call historical value. So here we come to something most of us are very familiar with, or at least we see a bunch, and that is a Tom Bunk color rough. Now, when you're collecting those, they will have different letters on them and numbers, but letters. So the higher the letter is, the better the piece. So if this says A, there's no higher letter, right? So that means this is the best one. But out there somewhere, there's a B, there's probably a C, there might even be a D, knowing Tom. He did a ton of these sometimes. And he was meticulous about getting this right before he committed to the painting. Plus, you can just tell Bunk just loves to draw, just loves it. That's his thing mainly. This, by the way, is just a little off topic, but this is a restricted kid. I do own some restricted kids that you'll see as we go that I'm so proud of. Back in 2024, I think it is, Topps had published their restricted list. They are I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, they're blocking some artists from making some of the older kids because they're too rough for today's eyes. This kid, just a little off topic, but there's too much fucking pee. Okay. Plus, you can tell he's peeing. He's holding his dick. Okay. We can't see his dick, but it's too implied. Okay. So it's a little rough. Oh God, I'm so happy on that. It's not right, Pope. That's kind of a new one for me. I got that last year. So one thing we need to look at with bunk when you're out there trying to buy these things, they're not all color roughs in particular. Some are actually concepts. And so he'll put some wording up here, what they are. Thank God this was next. So it kind of shows what I'm trying to talk about. So a concept art for bunk looks like this. Okay. They're always on tracing paper. It's a bummer they're on tracing paper. No one likes to collect art on tracing paper. Tracing paper is one of the lowest forms of sized paper out there that you want anything on. It's hard to archive, anything put on tracing paper, but that's how he did it. Anyone know why he used tracing paper? Why would an artist use tracing paper? Because when he finally got polluted, this is polluted Paul. We know who this is, right? Some of you guys, please just, could you take a day or two, find a group like gpk.com, highly recommended gpk.com, or Barron's GPK World, which unfortunately doesn't work very well these days. Take a few days, sharpen up your history a little bit, look at all the characters, focus on them. You should be able to name these characters without looking at their names. Come on, most of you, we're in our 40s and 50s. How many times you got to look at these characters? I see so many people misnaming these characters. It's so annoying to me. Anyway, Polluted Paul. So the reason he traced it is because if he landed the character, he could simply put his tracing paper down over it and retrace it again. So all these guys, they were so time crunched. Okay. John Pound talks about this multiple times in interviews. Go to YouTube. Okay. You can look at interviews of John Pound, talking about the guy that did the main best ones. And he talks about how time crunched he did. In fact, he actually says that during OS1, he had to do one kid every day. So imagine the shortcuts he had to invent to just meet his deadline. Anyway, this is a color rough. One thing Bunk does that a lot of these other guys don't is he uses pen a lot. I love that. And it's so crude. When you get up in there, it's like, wow. You might immediately think, wow, it's so messy. Well, he's so confident is what it is. He's confident in his process. He knows what he's trying to accomplish with this piece of paper, right? That it can look like this for him personally. But other artists, this isn't good enough for some artists. They have to be tighter, as we call it in drawing. Look how fucking confident Newgarden is. I mean, his lines are almost like Henri Matisse, okay? That's a fine artist. Or, Modigliani even. I mean, his lines are almost poetic because they're done so fast. It's like gesture drawing. Anyway, next up, we're just kind of looking at some art. So these are mainly called roughs, okay? So that's the language you're looking for. I'll just say the word sketch you can't trust it anymore. All the people on Facebook has completely ruined the word sketch in this market. If someone says sketch, in fact, to me, that's a red flag. God, I love this piece. This is one of my named characters. This is Rush Hour Russ. It's A. That means it's the best one. There's a Rush Hour Russ B. There's a Rush Hour Russ C. This is one of the restricted kids. Thank God I own this. This is the Landon piece, the Hang Kid great piece. All right. So, and then we still have some more pencils somewhere. Where are, oh, okay. Okay, so this is a final. How do we know? Well, it looks just like the card, but it's bigger than the card. But wait, Russ, I keep hearing about prints. Yeah, prints are a fucking nightmare. So what some people do is they'll just print off things about this size and sell them. Basically, they're doing this so that you can frame them in your homes and not spend $3,000 on the painting, right? I mean, some of these paintings, they're you wouldn't believe it. All right, this is a final. This is a Scanner Tanner. Okay. The gag here, just by the way, is a kid who has locked the doctor out of the room. So that's one gag. It's a kid who's gone rogue. He's put the scanner in front of his own body. That's a kind of a small gag. That's not a big gag, but it's a small gag. And look at all the shit inside of his body. That's the big gag. There's also some little small gags, like his shoes being untied. He's pigeon-toed or whatever you want to call that. The cord's unplugged, which is problematic. Doesn't really explain why you can see inside. That's a little problem. But the reason that plug's there is because visually, Bunk wanted to bring your eye back. This is a dead zone. You know, the focal point, you got some interesting shit here. So as an artist, I don't know how many artists are in this group. So he had to bring something here. His choice was either to cut the kid here, put the banner here, and put the name here. But if he wanted to use this, he had to make the bottom piece interesting. Does that make any sense? Anyway, this is concept art. This is a great example of something that might look like a piece of like a rough, but it's not. This is concept art. Here we see Distorted Dot, right, from OS3. A great piece that was not used. So in the end, I don't know the story, but Bunk did not get the nod to do Distorted Dot. Pound did. So what I love about this piece is it makes me wonder, I don't want to be like disrespectful at all. But like, was there like some competition between Bunk and Pound, like getting their ideas across or something? I don't know. This is a fax. These never come up for sale. But in the new product department in the 2000s, they were doing a lot of faxing. But you wouldn't see that with the 80s very much, right? So this was a technology they used during All New Series, to get the artists then, like Engstrom, Diaz, David Gross at the end there, to get their art from their homes to Brooklyn instead of them driving, or instead of them mailing this like they used to. They would just have them faxed or something. So what this is by Jeff Zapata. This is not a drawing. This is a printout from a fax machine. I love that it's dated 2003. Even has the day, and that just wonderful. So this is what we call a pencil rough. We've seen a few of those already. I love this piece. I used to hate it, but what occurred to me as I've been collecting all these years is what Pegleg Greg, that's the character, Pegleg Greg, what he is, listen, he is the first modern Garbage Pail Kid. So we had the 80s stuff. There was that break in the 90s when we were all getting high, getting married, going to college, right? We some of us were, this is my story, I was walking through, I guess, yeah, it was Walmart, and I saw the all new series, like, holy shit, they started making them again. Well, when I opened the packs, they didn't look very good to me. And, but it occurred to me that Pegleg Greg in particular is the first modern Garbage Pail Kid, where they changed the style into a newer style. And if you know, they used Peg Leg Greg on the all new Series 2 posters. And they pushed him. He was the Pat kid and the poster kid for the modern cards. This is ground zero. Okay. Now, for most of us, it's like a suck thing because these do not look as good as a John Pound. But this is what they needed them to look like. Here we're going back in time a little bit. This is Fooey Louie. Loose leaf. These would be in the pencil rough category. Here we go. So this is what I want to show you. I'm going to put this phone down and get back to that Spiegelman. Actually, let me just take this out. That'd be way easier. And I'm going to mark it with this. One sec. Plus, I need a breather. All right. So, Spiegelman drew this in Brooklyn, New York. He wasn't at Warhol's house, okay? Warhol was not in Brooklyn. So anyway, so Spiegelman drew this wherever he was. There's stories of Mark Newgarden going into Spiegelman's office, just sitting there at his desk, sketching these fucking kids out. There's stories of them sitting in a restaurant over lunch, drawing these things out on napkins and just whatever they had. Receipts. Wish I had some of those, by the way. They would have dates on them and stuff and names of restaurants in Brooklyn that no longer exist. But I don't have those. These, I would imagine most of the ones that I have personally were probably the office ones because they're on nice paper. But anyway, this is where you see the genius of Warhol, okay? Because this is what he had to work off of. Imagine if man mailed this to you in the mail or however they did it then, and your job, your task, was to draw this out. Well, this is what he came up with. This kid was never used. It was way too dark. Because he could die, okay? Well, that's okay. So some of the Garbage Pail Kids, this is a little off topic, but some of the Garbage Pail Kids do die in Garbage Pail Kids, or they're fixing to die. But the thing that makes this one darker is he's going to die by another man's hand in the moment. Because you have characters like Max Axe, right? But you're not seeing an action scene. This is an action scene. He's got one hand on the little lever. He's got one hand on the metal spoon in the mouth. There's a connection there. There's a sense that this kid's going to die. Fun little fact about this character. By the way, he was never named. One fun fact is Warhol was so just like he didn't even like this that his girlfriend painted it. And that wasn't the only time Warhol employed his girlfriend to paint on for a final either. But usually on the ones that he just couldn't get into because they were too mean, his girlfriend would help him out. This is charred coal, as you should know. Let's see what his kid name was originally. This is a New Garden concept. Demon and Devils torturing on spit kid. He was concept 12 at the time. God, look at this piece of art. I don't care if it's not a painting. I've shown this to a lot of people who like this better than the painting because you get all this line work, all this energy that's trapped in this that adds to the feeling you're in hell, the chaos. It adds to the chaos. There's so much emotion in the line work that the reason we collect this stuff is you get to see or get to touch and handle these characters that we love, and you get to see the process that the artist went through. But anyway, had to show that. Oh, and Warhola, I've never noticed that either. So Mark called it Demon and Devil Torturing on Spit Kid. And then Warhola called it GPK in Hell Kid. Very cool. All right. This is by our friend Mark Pingator. This is a final. I bought this because my daughter's name is Ivy, and there's criminally underused name Ivy. But anyway, so I had to buy the one named after my daughter. Who does IVs, by the way, which is kind of a family joke. She kind of became this, or at least person that gives IVs. But anyway, so Mark, I don't have anything to show you else besides this with Mark Pingator, but he does pretty famously these days color roughs. A lot of people really like, so look up Mark Pingator color roughs, and there's a lot out there that you can buy. Some of it's not official though. You got to be a little careful with Pingator's art. You know, he kind of branched out on his own. He does his own art. His own series that do not have tops on them. Okay. This is by Leiron, who works for Disney now. That was his dream job. Yeah, great piece there. We call these final art. Okay, they were painted, and this is what was made to be, scanned or whatever to make the cards with. Okay. Sometimes these were sent back for the artist to correct. I've got one coming up that I corrected. One thing that Warhola did that other people didn't do is he did reverse art. So if you look at this card, if you find this card, it's reverse. Well, notice it's on tracing paper. So a lot of these guys that were cutting corners using tracing paper, by the way, Potty Scotty, tracing paper. Because if the artist could, I call it landing, if they could land the graphic here, all they had to do was trace it onto their Bristol board. Most of them, I'm sorry, I should point to this. This is just a backer sheet. Most of the artists, if you didn't know, paint on Bristol board. Look it up. You can find it at Michael's of all places. I don't want to get spun out. I think I'm doing good. How am I doing? Okay, so anyway, what I was going to say is this is obviously illustration board. Look how thick that is. Guys, if you're an artist and you're going to go this route, use Bristol. Okay, the tooth on Bristol is way better. I know illustration board is fun to paint on because it's so hard. There's something satisfying about it, but just don't go down that road. Okay, even Simcoe can tell you that. He switched from illustration to Bristol. Bristol is what Garbage Pail Kids should be painted on. It just is what it is. I'm talking about brands of paper here. Okay. Anyway, I forgot where I was going with this. So Warhola does, from time to time, not every time, from time to time he does color roughs. Okay. And it's been a later phenomenon for him. I know back in the 80s, I don't see many color roughs. Sometimes you do. But later, this is like 2012 we're in. I think this character is 2012. He would do, which is a nice little break from what you see with some of these other guys. He would do watercolor color roughs. And look how painterly it is. He's going outside the lines because it doesn't matter. This is for him. Imagine how nice that would look framed. Russ, why don't you frame your stuff? I know that's a frame, but this is a cheap Michael's frame. I bought this in a frame. Why don't I frame these is because I run an archive. Okay, I don't run a gallery in my home. No one's coming to my house to see a bunch of shit in a random room. I like to run my stuff like an archive, so my stuff's all archived. Oh, great example. I forgot I had this. So this is the pencil rough. So this came first. Then look. So this is tracing paper. He laid this down at one time. Let's do this. I've never done this. Let's do this. Let's see if this theory is correct. I'm going to take all this out. These that I have this on these are unphotographed pieces that I have to photograph. So my theory is, obviously, I got too much visual noise. So obviously this came first, right? So let's see if he did in fact trace it on here. Let's see if it lines up. Okay, this is lining the parameters of the card are lining up pretty well. Yes. There you go. So it looks like Warhol was happy with how this was going, so much so that he laid this on a piece of what paper class? Bristol. Bristol. Cheap and amazing. Bristol. Archival. Bristol. Use Bristol board. Artist. He traced it there. As we go through, there's so much to talk about. As we go through, notice artists are using different size formats, okay? The reason that is, pound is classically 5x7, always. The reason that is some artists like to paint bigger than other artists. I'm like that too. I hate painting little small fucking pictures. That's why I don't do sketch card art. I hate it. It's a fucking nightmare. I can't even see that well anymore, at least. So, but some people like that kind of thing. They like drawing like tiny little pictures. I was never like that in class. I drew big comics on full pages. I was never that little kid with technical pencils and bullshit like that. I like just regular pencils, and I drew big, and you can tell with some of these artists what they're comfortable with size-wise based on how big this is. I'm talking about the parameters of the drawing itself. Anyway, what is this? Is this a color rough, pencil rough, or final? Or a print? It's not a print because it's on Bristol. That looks like it's aged. And when I take this out, holy shit, this is the original painting. Holy shit, it's been signed by the artist himself. That's what we call a final. Okay. What's this? It's a pencil rough. So when you're out there collecting, so in my group, our group, it's toys, candy, and art, right? When I'm talking about art, you guys know I'm talking about this stuff, right? I'm not talking about sketches, okay? Because we can all sketch. We're all given hands. We can all draw something. We all doodle, you know what I'm saying? But it's the production art. The reason we're focused on this in this group is this is what made the cards that we love. Okay. Anyway, this is Tay Ken. If you didn't know, you should know. Tay Ken is one of my favorite kids of all time. Did by Layron not that long ago. Has been over a decade though. Man, time is flying. Is this a print? Hell no. It's signed in ink. It's got this. It can't be a print. Let's take it out. This is one of my newer pieces too from last year. Oh yeah. Chalky though. Damn. David, why is it so chalky? Yeah, one of my pet peeves is laying down chalky fucking white on a color. Russ, how do you not do that though? Well, you're supposed to tone your white. I get that it's illustration. I get that it's not really my field is illustration, but still, that's just a basic ass thing you don't do in art. You don't lay down a low grade white on a color because it looks like there's chalk sitting on it. It's called chalky. basically this whole thing's chalked out. Even the black is somehow chalky. So I'm really questioning. I think his acrylic paint needed he needed to add something to it. You know, they have all kinds of stuff you can put in there. Anyway, what's this? It's a final. Okay. David Gross, he does pencils, but he does not do color roughs. So why is that? So it's kind of confusing. Well, it just depends on the artist, what they're comfortable with. Some people are comfortable with just going from that to this. They don't need to sketch it out anymore. That's usually a sign that you have a good painter. Okay. Now I know I just critiqued Gross on this piece being a chalk fest. It is a chalk piece. But look at this one. This is not chalky. I mean, it's a little chalky. But yeah, this is just a great kid here. So these are finals. Let's skip through some of these. They're not prints. Don't be fooled out there in the market. You'll see things called prints. You might want to ask people before you buy, is this an original final or is it a print? All these are on Bristol. That's what we use, okay? This person used oil paint on Bristol board. That's just a art school no-no. Everyone knows that. The reason she did this, is because it's very comforting to use oil paint. Why is it bleeding? Well, there's two things that could be happening. Either this was not gessoed or her paint touched the ungessoed border. She probably did gesso this. Let's find out right now. Let's see if she gessoed this is called the filled. It's called different things, but it's what you're painting on. Yeah, you call it the canvas or whatever, but the field of the graphic. Let's see if she gessoed the fucking rectangle is what I'm trying to get to. Okay, moment of truth. Yeah, so that's what happened. So what you can't see it, but there's basically primer that was painted first. But when her brush touched, when she went over the border, this is not primed, and so it bled. That's oil. And as time goes on, this is going to get yet more yellow and then eventually brown. And it'll actually start to degrade the fibers of the paper. Look how bad Takeout Tyler is. Very oiled and fucking chalked to death here. Horrible, horrible. Yeah, be careful, guys. If you're an artist, you're not supposed to be scumming. It's called all kinds of things. But she scummed it. Don't scum with white. You got to add some. You can scum with a light color, but you have to add something to it. Because some of these whites, especially in acrylics, are not as high grade as you think. I'm talking about the pigment ratio, and you're just gonna fucking chalk them out. Right? And that's not fun to look at. Look how fucking chalky that shit is. It literally looks like there's chalk sitting on it. And last I checked, dough is not supposed to look like chalk. Well, I guess that is flour, but it was painted kind of bad. Yeah, but anyway, out on the market, there's finals. This is a pencil rough. Simcoe, we're kind of in the Simcoe zone. He does pencils. And yeah, he's one that skips the color rough. So with him, you have the pencils and then you have the painting. So again, you can interpret that different ways. Either he's a really good painter, as you can see he is, but it's also a confidence thing, and it can also be a time thing. I think with Simcoe, he's just such a confident painter, and I can just tell he just goes for it. This is a good example. So with Simcoe, this is the complete set. I'm not missing anything with Simcoe. Now, I could be missing some random concept sketch, But nowadays, I don't know who is doing what necessarily. Like, I don't know if there's a man behind the curtain at Topps who sends ideas to these guys. I don't think so at all. In fact, when I look at Simcoe's, he has a lot of notes down here. Look, he even drew it here. I think this is probably his idea. Probably. I mean, maybe Topps told him to do a Tom Sawyer, but as far as him sketching it out from front to back, I think he pretty much... I'm probably not missing a single thing. This is probably the whole thing they had for that one character. Such a great kid. This is Goth Gabe. All right. Sometimes they come with COAs. Simcoe does his full page one. They always come with these. Nice printout. Tells you the characters. Pounds come with a Topps certification. Tom Bunk does his own printouts. Different artists do different COAs. This is a rare example of Joe Simcoe doing a color rough. And that's because this is early in his GPK career, I guess you'd call it. So in this one, he did a color rough. Look how beautiful that is. It looks like a final, don't it? I mean, there's not much difference there. Early in his little career, in his span with Topps, he did Bristol board, and then he quickly switched to Bristol. I'm sorry, he did illustration board. Illustration board. This is a thick ass board, but he switched to Bristol. Yeah, so this is one that I corrected. One sec. Mouth is getting drier than a mug. So if you look at the card, there's an error in it. His glove came over here. So I pointed it out, and Simcoe fixed it, where the fork is coming out of the middle of his glove and not behind his hand. It's an error. So anyway, if you find this card, I want you to look at it. And what's so weird is, like he pointed out on his pencil, it was correct. Of course, he wouldn't have messed that up. Just in the painting, he had messed it up, where the fork was coming out of basically his elbow, kind of. Yeah, but anyway, with Simcoe, he rarely did any color roughs. So basically, if you want the entire kid, you'd have to find the pencil. Actually, I don't have the pencil for this. The pencil and the final. This is, I was about to say it's out of place. No, it ain't. We're kind of going into the Brent Ingstrom stuff. So Ingstrom, he's another guy that does not do color roughs. So he would go from pencil to final. Okay. Again, that's probably a sign of just confidence. Now, Brent is doing a very John Pound style, where what he does is he'll paint the kid with acrylics. Then he'll mask it with a piece of probably Mylar, some sort of, I don't know what kids use it these days, or people, artists. But basically they'll cover the kid with a piece of plastic and then airbrush over the piece of plastic, then peel the tape off, and it looks like that. Which is how John Pound was doing it, and how he was getting so many of these done. I don't know where I'll put it now. I think it's buried. I was looking for fake Jake. Anyway, so that's an easy way that some of these artists were cutting corners, or are cutting corners, is they will paint the kid with acrylic paint, mask it, spray paint over the mask, peel the mask off, and voila. This one is interesting because I have part of the mask on it, so let me show you that. Now, this is Mad Mike, as some of you know, 30th anniversary, 2015. Look at that. I have the artist's mask. Russ, who gives a shit? I do. because it's part of the process. All this is production art, so you're seeing more production. Now, this is not the mask for Mad Mike. This is not the shape of This is not the shape of Mike Tyson. Is this how Mike Tyson looks? No, this is the border mask. So that tape used to be here. And what this does is it allows Brent to really get the airbrush just right. He would peel off the tape, and look how clean and satisfying it is. And plus, he ended off with these really clean borders, margins. Fun little fact, Mad Mike is, to my knowledge, still the only demonstration Brent has ever done in video. So if you go to YouTube, I think it's on YouTube, if not, it's on Facebook, you can see Brent Engstrom in action painting this painting right here. All right. This is called a final art. I think we skipped one. Oh, okay, this is good. So one thing I've noticed about Brent, actually, this is a way better example, is sometimes his concept sketch, wait till you see the concept sketch, or I'm sorry, the color rough. I don't know, actually with Brent, it's kind of both. Wait till you see the sketch for Windy Chimes. This is Windy Chimes. What year was Windy Chimes? Who knows? God, you should know. Fuck, you should know. You know why you should know what Windy Chimes is so simply? Is because it was in Bikini Coon. And Bikini Coon only came out one year, 2014. Duh. Series 2014. Anyway, look how dumb his pencil was originally. God, trash. Absolute trash. Thank God he went with more thin lin, right? And it became one of the best pieces of the year. One thing we got to talk about, Brent Engstrom. He is the first artist to use Photoshop on a kid. So what's missing? There's something missing. The wind is missing, the swirls. Because what he would do, he would paint this. Remember, this is acrylic paint, mask, airbrush. Now, I don't know if he retouched the leaves on top of the airbrush or if he masked those two. Because the leaves were in this concept sketch, so he knew he wanted them already. So, yeah, I don't know which came first. It's a little detective work. I like this kind of stuff. I don't know about you. Because, you know, in the art world, this takes a much bigger thing. Because if you're studying a Rembrandt, there's people that are actually studying, like the Da Vinci Code, trying to figure out his process because no one can talk to Rembrandt. But we have these guys and we have the evidence before us. And I can tell you, when I was looking at this a second ago, I see pencil, which is kind of a no-no. But over here, I don't see the pencil. Look how penciled out that is. So I'm wondering if that's a retouch. And like an afterthought, basically, is what I'm saying. A retouch after the airbrush. Because it looks like he airbrushed over the leaves. That's why they're so muddy, especially that one. Look how muddy that is. It looks like he didn't mask the leaf, does it? So it looks like he airbrushed over the fucking thing. He should have retouched. He didn't retouch it very good, did he? I need to look at that card and see how that leaf looks. Which is also Jeff Zapata's job to make sure everything looks perfect before printing, right? This is Grunge Greg, one of the great characters. Ended up being, kind of a box and pack kid. He's not right on the pack, but I'm sorry, box kid. This is a piece that got retouched with because you know this is ozone holly, and it's supposed to have the ozone around it, but where's the ozone? Well, Brent put this into Photoshop and he photoshopped the ozone around it. So the process with this piece Very easy job. This probably did not take very long to do. Some kids, you can tell, took these guys forever. Probably took multiple days to get this damn thing. This was probably an easy day for Brent. He probably was, took the rest of the day off. All he had to do was paint a little world, masked it, then he airbrushed this, but then he retouched the stars on top of the airbrush. Does that make sense? But then he scanned it into Photoshop and he put the ozone layer on top. Then he took then he sent the JPEG or whatever the fuck it was, probably an Illustrator file, and emailed it to whoever. I think it was Colin Walton, right, at the time. Am I correct on there? Thank fuck God he's gone. Not Brent, I'm talking about Colin. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite pieces. This is obviously Billy Bling on his Series 7 from 2007. What's missing? His fucking glasses. That's another example of Brent scanning this into Photoshop, putting on the glasses, and then sending probably the Illustrator file. I don't know if it was a JPEG. I don't know what file type it was. Now this would have been Jeff Zapata would have got this probably an email. Which meant Brent got to keep his final, which meant Russ Van could buy it down the road. Thank God I own the pencil as well. If you buy from Brent, he'll give you the pencil for free. That's another thing we haven't talked about. Some of the artists will piece their art out, but some will send you the whole package, and Brent sends you the whole package. So when I bought Andy Apple, what series is he from? It's so obvious. Yeah, he's from American Apple Pie. He's the fucking box kid for American Apple Pie. When Brent sent me this, he sent me the pencil, which is so great because we can see how it started. Thank God he didn't go with this. I don't know when and where and how, but when he got here, he decided to straighten it up. I don't know if the art director at the time, I don't think it was Colin. I don't know who it was. Maybe told him to make him standing, because here he's kind of laying down. It looks pretty ridiculous. I get why he did this. It's sort of, celebratory. He's like, hey, he's in America, I guess. It's kind of happy. I would argue it's not very Garbage Pail Kids, though. It's a little Cabbage Patchy, I say. But this made it more Garbage Pail Kids because now he has a fucking knife in his head. There we go. So whoever suggested the knife, thank you for that. Because we were going down a very Cabbage Patchy road there for a second. Next up we have Biggie Smalls. Just got some random little drawings here. Yeah, so let's see who we're missing. Neil Camera is another guy who does some finals from time to time. Not many of the base card finals, though, but some of the subset finals. Now, this is a wacky package. I don't think I have any pencils from him. I don't know what's back here. Some Mad Magazine stuff. Yeah, so, yeah, pretty long live stream. Hope you enjoyed that. So I just want to teach you guys a little bit about what you can look for on the market and just kind of fix some of the language, because I know it's so confusing, especially with the word sketch. Guys, the word sketch is so blown out, you can't trust it. In fact, to me, it's a total red flag. If someone's calling something a sketch, I probably don't want it. What I want, though, when I hear the word concept, ding, 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 ding. When I hear concept art, hell yeah. Show me what you got. When I hear pencil rough, holy fuck, you got a piece of production art. When I hear color rough, and when I hear the word final, final is one of the buzzwords in Garbage Pail Kids. If someone's talking final, and they put a 1-1 for one of one, or they say the words original, and they put the fucking name of an actual fucking artist, like Brent Engstrom, who's an employee of Topps, who does the final art, who actually makes kids that go on the fucking cards, that's a big deal. If you're a collector, it's a big deal. All right. I'm spun out, but I hope you enjoyed it. Later.